Welcome to today's mini masterclass. My name is Rebecca Mickey and I am a children's sleep consultant and author. And in today's mini masterclass, we are looking at sleep training and your child's sleep personality. Your child's sleep personality is certainly going to impact how sleep training goes for you. Now, you know your child better than anybody on the planet, but when we're going through the masterclass, we're going to be looking at 3 different sleep personalities. And if you've not already done so, you're going to want to take my sleep personality quiz. You can just scroll down and you'll find the link there. So pause the video, take the quiz, and come back and join me. Okay, great. I imagine that you've taken the quiz and you know your child's sleep personality. So they are either laid back, they are shy, or intense. So what is your child's sleep personality? Now, children react very differently to change. Every child is completely unique and they're going to react very, very individually. But there are some traits that we will often see. Laid back children generally have a little bit of an easier time with change. Shy children are a little bit slow to warm up when it comes to change, and they are going to have a little bit of a harder time. So you may notice this already when you are going to new places, meeting lots of new people, that your child struggles and they have a bit of a hard time and easily seem to get overwhelmed. And then there's intense children. And intense children may have a really easy time with change, but they may have a very difficult time with change. And it all depends on how they feel about that change. If it's something that they're interested in, they are going to 100% enjoy it. If it is something that they are not interested in and they do not want to do, they are 100% going to tell you their true feelings. When we are sleep training, we really want to take into consideration your child's sleep personality, because that will even help you choose the sleep training technique. Now remember, you know your child better than anybody else on the planet, but here is a guide for your child's sleep personality and sleep training. Let's get started with those laid back children. Generally, children who are laid back have a little bit of an easier time with change. And of course, sleep training is making big changes. Your child has been falling asleep one way, and we are now going to change that, and we want them to be falling asleep more independently. This is a big change. Laid back children have a slightly easier time with this. Of course, they may get upset with the change, and it depends on your sleep training technique as what you are going to do. But generally, laid back children do have a slightly easier time. Now, shy children are going to have a little bit of a harder time when it comes to sleep training, because it takes them time to adapt to change. And of course, sleep training is a really big change. You have been helping your child to sleep one way, and now we are changing that up, and we are going to be helping them fall asleep a completely different way. And this change may be difficult for them. So there are some things that we can do to make this a little bit easier. Preparation is really key for these shy children. You want them to be really, really prepared for success with the sleep training. So that means you want to make sure they're very comfortable with their bed and being in their bed and being awake there. If they've already have a negative association with that sleep space, they are not going to be happy when you lay them down there. So you're going to want to make sure that they have a very positive association with their sleep space. You're going to want to stay with your child as much as possible. Children who are shy and slow to warm up, these children are going to really struggle if they are left alone. And this is going to get to a big urgent cry, and then they may really struggle to relax and unwind after it's got to that big urgent cry. So choosing a technique where you are remaining in the room may be of more benefit for a shy and slow to warm up child. I always suggest that you have a cut-off point, and this is really important for shy children. Now, a cut-off point is a maximum time that you are going to be using your technique for. And the reason I like to do this is there are a lot of children out there shy children and those intense children who will often need to be shown how to do something a few times before they get it. Just like your shy child, when they go somewhere new, they may need to spend a few minutes having a look around, getting settled in before they're ready to get off and go and play. This is the same when it comes to sleep. They may need a few nights of realizing what this change is before they are then going to be comfortable and be able to fall asleep. So it is important to have a maximum time that you are going to be using your sleep training technique for. And then once you get to your cutoff, you will go back to helping your child to sleep the same way that you were. Now, I know this goes against so much of what you are going to read and what you are going to see on the internet about sleep training, but these techniques don't necessarily take into consideration your child's sleep personality, and they will just tell you to keep going and going and going. And honestly, that's going to be a lot of upset and a long time for a shy child to be able to fall asleep. We're talking well over an hour. And that personally is just a little bit too long for me. So having a maximum duration that you are going to be doing something for and then stop. You then want to take a little bit of a break and then get them down to sleep. And then you want to do the same the next night. Now, it may take you 3 or 4 nights after you have got to your cutoff point, before then your child is able to get to sleep with the technique. You may want to split up your beginning of the night and your during the night. This may make it a little bit easier and less likely for your child to get overwhelmed with when we get started sleep training. It's okay to do so. Again, you're not going to be reading this in many places, but I'll often do this when I work with families. We'll just get started with the beginning of the night. Once we've had 3 nights of seeing some good progress at the beginning of the night, then we'll get started with the during the night as well. So during the night, it's okay to just do exactly as you were doing, whether that's feeding to sleep or rocking to sleep, bed sharing, whatever that looked like. It's okay to do that. Once you've had 3 nights of where your child has been able to get to sleep with the technique, then you are going to want to implement as well during the night. It may be a little bit trickier to space the time out between feeds, and that's dropping night feeds. So go nice and slow with your shy child. You don't want to rush too much. They're going to really struggle when it comes to lengthening out the time between feeds, which is the way that I like to drop feeds. You don't want to just suddenly not feed your child, because even if they've only been feeding a little bit, or they should be able to go for however many hours without a feed, if they're used to feeding, their stomach is going to be expecting that milk and they're going to be hungry. And then if they're hungry, they're not going to be able to fall asleep. They're pretty hangry and they're going to be really mad and they're not going to be able to fall asleep. So spacing the time out between the feeds make you want to go really slowly doing so. Another way that I like to work on reducing night feeds is actually reducing the amount that you give at each feed. That can be reducing down the amount of ounces or reducing down the amount of minutes that you're breastfeeding for. Have the same results. Now, with those intense children, now these intense children are certainly not going to be happy being put into their bed relaxed but awake, which is how we want to get started with any sleep training technique. Laying your child down relaxed but awake. They are not going to be remaining relaxed for very long. If you lay them down, no doubt, if they are getting to sitting or standing, they will do so within a split second, and they are going to be pretty furious at you because you are making these really big changes, and they don't want to be doing this. And as all intense children do, they are 100% showing you their true feelings here. So intense children, you're going to want to remain with your child. I think that this is really important for those intense children. I have often seen intense children, when they've been left to cry it out, get to a really panicky stage and will cry for hours and hours and hours. The longest I heard of was actually 8 hours, and that's when the mom gave in, not when the child fell asleep. Their child was really intense and had a very intense sleep personality and really struggled. Often children will get to a big, urgent, panicky cry, And then if we get to that point, it's kind of game over because they're not going to be able to easily relax and unwind. And obviously your child needs to be calm to be able to fall asleep with ease. So choosing a sleep training technique where you are going to be remaining with your child, I think is really important for those intense children. You're going to want a technique where you can be hands-on and you can be picking them up as much as possible, because that way you can prevent them getting to that big urgent cry. Oftentimes, if we do get to that big urgent cry, it's kind of game over and we need to stop. Now, much like shy children, if you do have an intense child, you may have a few nights of needing to show them how we're going to be doing something before they're going to get it. Now, this may be that it takes even longer nights than the shy child will. Maybe 4 or 5 nights before you'll be able to use the technique and help your child down to sleep. So making sure that you have your cutoff point is really, really important here. We can split up the beginning of the night and the during the night, but you're going to want to make sure that you stick with that 3-night rule, maybe even 2 nights before you then get started with your during the night sleep training. It's really important that we get nighttime sleep on the same page as quickly as possible. Most of the time I will have families start the beginning of the night, and then when we've had success at the beginning of the night, then we are going to be doing for the entire night as well. Now, intense children, because they can get so mad and so furious, if you have been feeding your child back to sleep, I'll often keep those feeds around the same times that you have been feeding already, stretching out a little bit, but not a huge amount. Because we want to be using the technique at some point, but then it may be really hard for your child, and they may then need those nights of being shown what to do before they get it. So we don't want to be then using a technique for so long every single feed time. We want to stretch out the time for those feeds a little bit, and then if your child does fall asleep and it is a feed time, honestly, that's okay. But you do want to have a visual cue for when a feed is going to happen. Your child needs to know when that feed is going to happen, and it's not just because they woke up. Right now, if you're feeding them back to sleep every time that they wake, that's their cue for getting fed, is you coming in. We want to change this up. So you do need to have a visual cue for letting your child know when it is a feed time. Now, I like to use a little lamp or a night light, something that you can easily turn on and off. You're going to want to use your sleep training technique. Hopefully your child will fall back asleep. If not, you're going to pop them down in the crib. You're going to turn your light on, pick your child up and feed them. Now, if you can turn the light off whilst you're feeding, that's completely fine. But what's happening here is the reason that they got the feed is because the light came on, not because they woke up. That is our cue for a feed. This is really helpful actually for when you're extending the time out between feeds and you're working on reducing down those feeds, having a visual cue for when those feeds are going to happen. With those intense children, you're going to want to get your naps on track as quickly as possible as well. Now, I do always split up nighttime sleep and naps during the day when it comes to sleep training. I don't like to work on both together, and we do have a little bit of time with those intense children before we do need to work on those together. Not as long as with laid back children or with those shy children. So we may want to only give it about a week of success with your technique at night before you're then going to start with your daytime and getting everything all on the same page as quickly as possible. Staggering it is easier for you, it's easier for your child, and it gets you the same results. If you are interested in working with your child's sleep personality and doing some gentle no-cry sleep training, check out Slumber Academy. In there, you'll find everything that you need to work with your child's age, their unique sleep personality, and let's get them sleeping independently. Thanks for joining me for this mini masterclass. I'll see you soon.